Hello, it's Monster Forge. Well, that's not Monster Forge. I'm Monster Forge. But this is a video especially for... I've gotten a bunch of new subscribers just recently. My channel's starting to move finally. I've been listening to the advice that I've been getting from YouTube and from other sources that basically tell you how to, build up your channel. And it's been working. I've gotten several new subscribers just recently. And some of you guys might not be familiar. And in particular, most of my channel has been focused on toy reviews. But I have noticed in recent days that whenever I'm sharing my art on there, which is something I've always done, but I'm doing it more now, when I'm sharing my art, people really seem to respond to it. And several of the subscribers just recently came from the videos I had put out about my Stupid Force figures. Now, you might ask yourself, what is Stupid Force? If you looked at if you came in looking at some of the shorts, you would see they were labeled Stupid Force. And some of the shorts I've been posting were with my Warhammer proxy miniatures and my little sculptures. But I just want to address what Stupid Force is. Stupid Force probably started when I was a child. I grew up with not a lot of means. My folks weren't rich, and my whole family, we have a big family, and my dad was one of those guys that he just kind of had a lot of different jobs and all, and so there wasn't a whole lot of money coming in, but we had a lot of love, and we learned a lot of resourcefulness from my dad. And my mom. That's just the way they were. But when I was a kid, I got toys a lot of times from the store, but it tended to be lesser known toy lines, kind of bootlegs from the late 70s and the early 80s. And some toy lines I would get like one guy, usually a bad guy because they look cooler. But I would get one guy out of a toy line, and that's just the way it was with retail stuff. The thing I had the most of when I was a kid was Star Wars stuff, and that's mainly because Star Wars figures, when I was a little kid, they were like $1.99, and then they went up to $2.99, and I don't know if they got much more than that during the time they were running. And it might just be my region had them at that price. I don't know what they were in other regions. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, if I had toys when I was a kid, it was one of three things. It was gifts from people. It was smaller toys from retail sources, stores like Kmart. We didn't have a Walmart back then. TG&Y was our Walmart. And I don't know, I mention TG&Y a lot of times, and people are like, what the heck are you talking about? Did you just have a seizure or something? It's like, no, that was actually the name of a toy, not a toy store, but it was a department store. And it was kind of like what Rose's is today. They just had a bunch of product in one store, and it wasn't really expensive. But TG&Y was a big part of my childhood, and that's where I tended to get stuff. But, I would get stuff like a Star Wars figure or a G.I. Joe figure. One of the first things that I bought with my own money was, it was a birthday, and, well, no, that was later on. The first thing I bought with my own money was the Star Wars Hoth playset. But the first thing that really struck me as like something that stayed with me later on, it was money that I had earned, and I went and bought Wheeljack from Transformers. He was my first Transformer, and it started a whole avalanche of loving Transformers. But anyway, all of that, I get off topic sometimes. Don't mean to. But another source of toys when I was a kid was flea markets. In our area, we didn't really have thrift stores to go to, which is something that I love to do today. But we had flea markets, and we would go to flea markets pretty regularly, and I would get toys, used toys, and sometimes they would be broken, and I had to learn how to fix them. And sometimes it meant using tape, sometimes it was glue, because when I was a little kid I couldn't have super glue, but that changed when I got a little bit older. And just learning to put things together, taking a broken toy, it's got a broken arm, and putting another arm in its place. And so I started to developing the idea of like a toy chop shop. And I just put things together to make cool figures that I wanted. Flash forward to probably, and this is something really that I never stopped doing. I've always put different things together to make figures. Didn't know it was a whole scene until later on in my life, the custom toy scene. But later on, when I started actually putting my stuff out there and selling my stuff, first of all, I was making custom action figures. And then it went to sculpture and things like that. Once I learned, of products like Super Sculpey and Epoxy Sculpt and things like that, I started making my own stuff to sell. And so at some point, it was probably 2011 or 2012, I made my first series of the cobbled together figures that I call Stupid Force. And Stupid Force, his idea is these are not serious things. They're stupid, they're silly. I mean, you could even call them Silly Force if you want to, but I just call them Stupid Force with a purposeful misspelling because they're all stupid. There's nothing really, serious about any of the ones I make. Like, take for instance here, this guy. It's a Hulk body with Grogu's head and hands from a Skeletor figure. And when I get finished with it, the thing that ties everything together is the paint job. Because I make these figures and I put them together, but then I paint them. And something that starts off like this, cobbled together from all the parts that I collect. And this is a small sampling of parts. This is, like I have a, if you look here, each box is labeled with like heads, hands, things like that. And these are just some of the boxes that I have. I have tons of toy parts because I buy toys. Anytime I go to a thrift store or flea market, I buy broken toys because I know I'm going to use them to make something. But anyway, so what you have is you just have a pile of parts. And this is the way I work. It's very chaotic the way I work. I have ADD, but I don't have the cool, like, everything's organized and I know where it is. In my ADD, it's ADD and autism combined. I know where everything is, but nobody else can find it. It's this chaos, and it's always been like this. My desk has always been chaos, but I know where everything is, and I cobble together. And so I'll take a head, like a gorilla's head, and put it on another body, and it has to be something really silly. That's what goes in Stupid Force, is just silly stuff. So you go from parts to cobbling a figure together to refining it, sometimes sanding things down, smoothing things out, and then comes the paint, and you get to a creature like this, which is my battle hound. And he's just, he was a Cerberus, a dog with 3 heads, from mythology. Chopped his heads off because I was going to use the heads for things. And then I just put together a bunch of weapons to make them a force. So they're stupid, and they're a force, and they're Stupid Force. And of course, he's got a little rider that rides on his back. Trying to get it to focus there. There we go. And I'm not really finished with this one. I've done a lot of the paint on it, like the battle damage and stuff like that. But this is not a finished piece. This is about as close to finish as I've got with me right now. But the stuff that I'm working on right now, like he's not finished. I'm going to put armor on him. I'm going to probably give him a weapon, things like that, a shield maybe, and just make him this weird warrior. And he's not going to be green. He's going to be different colors. I think I'm kind of leaning towards purple, maybe purple and pink. But that's another thing. I like for Stupid Force to be silly colors as well. And one of the guys that I'm just about finished working on today is this guy. And he's a big Stupid Force. Stupid Force comes in all sizes. I like the little miniatures. And what I like about, what I like about the little minifigures, which what I would do here is I've got this little body, and of course that's Snoke from, it's some kind of little battle card game that they came out with. I would find, you know, a head that's suitably funny or weird or sometimes just cool looking, you know? And, I use Dremels, I use saws and things like that. And I would make a head fit that body. And maybe it's going to be, you know, like Snoke is a serious girl. I might put a book in her hand so she's reading a book because she's smart. Because glasses equal smart, right? Anywho, this is the guy I've been working on today. And he's almost finished. This was a broken Hulk figure. And it's the Hulk body, the Hulk legs, the Hulk arms. And then I added added hands from another figure. The head is one of the Cerberus heads, and the mouth opens and closes. I was able to preserve that. I like to preserve what articulation I can, but sometimes when I'm making these things, the articulation just doesn't work, and it's more like a statue. But this one has arms that move. The legs don't move. That was what was broken on this guy. And so the legs are frozen, but I sanded off. I filled the cracks where the legs were, and I use baking soda and super glue. And let me tell you what, baking soda and super glue, that's one of the best things I ever discovered. And I just discovered it was during the lockdowns. I got obsessed with miniature painting. And a lot of the guys that make the miniatures, they use the baking soda and super glue to really hold things together tightly. And you'd have to really you'd have to have like gorilla strength to break those joints loose there. You would break the plastic before you broke the joint. But anyway, that's just one thing I do. He's got some strapping that I put on him for his harness. His head doesn't turn. His arms move though. And I found this really cool, I think it's a G.I. Joe missile launcher gun that came with some of the G.I. Joe movie figures when they made that first G.I. Joe live action movie. They had great weapons in those sets, but they weren't properly scaled to the figures. So you had this big giant gun. It's supposed to be like a bazooka or a rocket launcher, but rocket launchers are big, but they weren't that big. But on a figure this size, it's perfect. And I figure he's got this thing runs to his shoulder pad, which what I'm going to do is I'm going to put like a little electronic thing on his shoulder pad, which is supposed to power this gun that he has. And then to fuel him, I have this tank that I got. I work for a recycling center, and a lot of times people throw away stuff that, like a lot of toys and stuff like that. And when it's something that somebody throws away, it's like broken or whatever, I will salvage it and use it. And this was from a Ninja Turtles party wagon from the newer Ninja Turtle movie, the CGI one that came out just a couple of years ago. But anyway, this tank was on the side of that, and I salvaged it and used it. And I think I might put like the Monster Energy logo or something like that on it, something silly, maybe Red Bull, but then I'd have to have wings on him too. Anyway, and the feet are from a while back. I bought off of AliExpress. I bought a set of the oversized Dinobots from, as a bootleg, KO. Oversized Dinobots from Combiner Wars, older Transformer line. But the dinosaurs combined to form Volcanicus, and it's really, in my opinion, not, some people like it. I hated the way it looked when it was put together. I mainly got them because I wanted big Dinobots, and I really couldn't afford to get the Studio Series Commander class ones. They're nice. They're some of the nicest Dinobots that they've made in the regular line. But I just couldn't afford them, so I got the oversized Combiner Wars ones, and that makes me happy. Grimlock is taller than my Optimus Prime. That's all that matters. But yeah, what I did was I took the feet from the Volcanicus and I chopped the back end of the feet off and used it to make the front part of the shin guards. And then I used armor parts from different figures for the backs. And I'm going to fill this in with a plate of something. But that's basically Stupid Force. Stupid Force is just making goofy, stupid figures, and that I have fun making, and I like sharing them, and people seem to really like them. I've got like a group of people that always look forward to when I make and sell the Stupid Force stuff, and I'm right at the point where I'm ready to sell some. I was making figures quite regularly and basically living off of what I made because it was a good business. It was running well. I didn't make killer money, but I made enough money to pay my bills and do what I needed to do, and that made me happy. Because the thing that makes me the happiest is making things. And so if I'm able to make things and take care of everything, I feel like I'm doing pretty well. But anyway, I'm saying a lot. I didn't really script anything. I'm just kind of throwing this together and willy-nilly. But anyway, when 2020 came around, and right after that, things started getting kind of tough economically. People kind of quit buying my stuff for a while. And at that point, I was making some of the best stuff I've ever made. And just working, making figures and putting them out, and nothing would sell. And I understood it was because people had to prioritize things. But I had to quit making the figures and get a job. And that's what, I'm doing now. I'm working, and I finally, in my spare time, I work on these figures. And not just these figures, I work on custom figures too. Like this is going to be a Masters of the Universe Origins, like a sorcerer. And I haven't even decided if he's a good sorcerer or a bad sorcerer. But anyway, that's what I do as well. I also work on like Warhammer miniatures and things like that. And my throat's really going. Hold on a second. Much better. But I finally gotten to the point, and I've amassed an army of figures that I've been working on in my spare time. And I'm getting ready to share them again. And so, if you're interested in any of them, just keep an eye here. My social media account should be linked to my YouTube channel. Check those out. I update, and I will update here on YouTube. So if you're new to the channel and this is your first exposure to Monster Forge as an artist, welcome. It's good to have you. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for following and keeping up with stuff. And I hope everybody has fun watching the stuff I make and watching my toy reviews. And I love comments. I love talking to people in comments. So feel free. If you don't like something I do, feel free to express that too. I'm not a perfect person. I'm not a perfect artist. Actually, I don't know any perfect artists. But, needless to say, I'm not perfect. And so sometimes I make mistakes, and just let me know. And I try to rectify things, and I try to keep things friendly, and I try to keep things wholesome. I might make a cringy meme every once in a while, but that's about as bad as it gets. But yeah, this is Monster Forge. This is what I do. Welcome and enjoy your stay. Everybody have a good one. God bless, and I'll talk to you in the next one.